Welcome, Josh. Josh is from So Awake. I had a talk with Josh. Was it a month ago? I can't remember.
Yeah.
And we had a really wild talk about just what is, and what seems to appear is a lot of parallels, a lot of similarities to what we talk about. Although it seems that this is a crossover, it's not. It's just what is. And there's actually a lot of requests, to have a conversation again because that was um a wild talk, I guess, about something that can't be talked about. But before I go there, um, Josh, can you just give a little introduction of So Awake and about the character Josh and what he does and all that sort of awesome epic stuff?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. So Wake is it's just a name.
Mhm.
It came from there was a business established years ago called So Good, and it was just meant more to sell T-shirts. And soon after Angelo had asked me to work with people one on one, it made sense to kind of expand that name, and So Good became So Awake. It's mostly a channel or a venue for people that are curious about whatever this is, to engage with it in a deeper way. By no means is there anything that's known here yet. Sometimes the intuition, I'm sure, as Emerson, the character of Emerson, knows, is it just kind of flows and it just comes out, and it can be really surprising at times. And so it feels good to be in a place that feels maybe like compassion for people, and that's kind of what it's all about.
Beautifully said. Can you share? I've heard this before, but can you share the story of Josh?
Oh
How
yeah,
how
yeah. Um, wow. It feels like a fading dream. Oftentimes, going back into
Mhm.
the story. So let me just see if I can capture anything. Okay, so there was a period in time where it was just this repeat and patterning over and over and over, and probably mid to late 30s, I had just reached a place where I was no longer interested in life itself. It just seemed like everything was about doom and gloom. I just couldn't reach a state of happiness. It was this constant chasing of happiness and this constant avoiding of pain. And I had a random invitation from someone to say, "Hey, you want to come to a 1 day meditation retreat?" And at this point, I had reached such a state of apathy that I didn't even have the energy to say no. So I just simply said, "Yeah, I'll go." And so, anyway, intellectually, I had a lot of reasons I didn't want to go to this meditation retreat, but decided to go anyway. Um, Show up in a part of town, a part of Denver, which is usually considered, the other side of the tracks. It's where the oil refineries and things like that are here. And so it's just very industrial. And there were thoughts like, oh, I think she's probably attempting to sell me into sex slavery or something like that. There was just all these thoughts. You know how thoughts are.
Yeah.
Boy, boy, was running with those. But I did have a very visceral physical sensation right beneath the navel that felt like a magnet pulling me towards something. And
Mm.
so I, at this point, didn't really feel like I had anything to lose. So I just
Like a
followed that.
resonance.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, like crazy, right? Like, yeah,
it was like, it was as if somebody was, if I could see, there would probably be almost like a hand pulling something there.
yeah,
It just was so strong.
yeah.
And show up at the house. Turns out it's a really nice part of town. It's rural, and I knock on the door, and the guy who opens the door, he's got kind of a faux hawk. His hair's like this, and he's got like a Backstreet Boys T-shirt or something. Maybe in sync. This is how it's. Who knows how accurate any of this is? But
Right
that's
away, it's
just
legit. It's legit. If somebody has an NSYNC or a Backstreet Boys t-shirt,
well.
it's
And
spot on.
the thought was strong of this
Yeah.
is the guru. This is the guru. That whole thing. Here in Colorado, if it comes to anything spiritual, we usually go to Boulder. It tends to be the hub
Mm.
of things like that. So it was just a lot of these thoughts. And we went into his living room. We began to speak a little bit, and he was just so kind,
Yeah.
welcoming. It had such a warm environment, and it was just so initially and instantly authentic that comfort was, it just kind of settled into a space of comfort. And then upon going downstairs for the first round of meditation, which was guided,
Mm-hmm.
he said, "All right, I'm going to guide. You guys can be in any position you want to be." And that was a nice change, because I didn't have to be in a sitting position the whole time. I could lay down or whatever was comfortable for the
Mm-hmm.
body. And then I would say within 2 minutes of the guided meditation, I started to have a sense that I was losing the substance of a body. It was dissolving, and
Mm.
I had shot out of my head is the experience. I mean, like I said, I can't really put this into accurate words, but it was like losing my body and traveling toward the center of the universe, if there is
Yeah.
such a thing, at the speed of light. And it was just this gone. There was no
Yeah.
hands. There was
So
no
so
feet.
in the
So,
radical non-duality, it would almost like there was a contraction and it was just opened. There was just
boom.
this openness. Boom, right? Just this like wow. And you don't even know what it is. I don't know. Keep on going. Sorry.
No, no, that's it. I mean,
I'm just trying to be
oh no, you're doing
interpreting.
great. It's there's no way to be able to put a finger on what it was. It was just as if it was like popping and being gone.
Yes.
Next thing I hear is I think it was a singing bowl, actually. I
Yeah.
Or a gong.
Yeah.
Violet keeps telling me it was not a gong, so it was probably a singing bowl. And then I'm all of a sudden in my body, and
Yeah.
it felt like maybe 3 minutes, and like my fingers, everything's like, when something falls asleep, it's got that tingly sensation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything was kind of everything, like my
Like something
eyebrows.
died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Okay, that's the first round. You're on silence." And I realized that had been an hour, and it seemed like just a few minutes. It was almost instantaneous. And then it was basically like being on psychedelics. Everything had a kind of a motion to it. There was color everywhere. There was a vibrancy with the light. It was just kind of this golden glowing everywhere. It was pretty intensely profound.
Beautiful, beautiful. And the question that usually comes, you know what I'm saying, with people that listen to this, was there a lot of suffering before? In my story, in Emerson's story, there's so much suffering, right? It was just like I could not get out of bed for quite a while. But go ahead with your story.
Yeah, actually, great question, Emerson. A significant amount of suffering. I had reached a point, even though I already had children at this point, that I didn't care if I lived or died anymore. I had gotten so apathetic that suicide was ruled out, because that would take too much energy, time, and planning.
Yeah.
I just didn't care about anything.
Beautiful. That's what it was to us, apathy. There's a lot of, I was just really apathetic. What it was seemingly, and there was almost like a hopelessness seemingly that there's nowhere to go and there's nothing that I can do to make this better. And it was almost like a complete how do you call it? What's that word? Just not surrender, but more like a giving up. It's like I give up. It's like white flag. Um, it's like the me got beaten down into submission, that it was really nothing and I could not do anything anymore.
That was it. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a perfect way to put it. If it felt exactly like that. Um, yeah, so much so that there was like not even a sense of being able to do anything or doing at all anymore.
And what seems to appear in this kind of stuff, and the moment that someone listens to these stories, is there's always a comparison right away. Uh
Mm,
and it's almost like there has to be kind of like qualifiers. I'm just going
mm,
to repeat that there's no qualifiers to this because it already is. It's
yeah,
not about suffering. It's because of that. It's not about whatever. Just from this opinion anyway, that it has nothing to do with any precursors or whatsoever. But seemingly in this story, and I do a lot of one-on-ones, and so do you. I hear this over and over and over again. It's like I usually attract people that have done it all, like done all of the spirituality, done the retreats, you name it, I'm saying, and then they're sick and tired of it. And that's what seems to appear. But there's also some characters that have no idea what they're stumbling upon to. And then
mm,
it's almost like this instantaneous, like, what's going on? It's like what's happening, so to speak, and they don't even have any spiritual background. So it's not that, but it's just a narrative, I guess. And one of the things that was really evident at that time is when Everything was just autonomous. Everything was just this no agency. Can you speak about no free will? I've been talking a lot about it lately. I would love to hear your take on it.
Yeah. So soon after meeting Angelo, there was this period of time where it was like a utopia. It was just like everything was perfect.
Yeah.
And it was such a black and white experience, from this apathy to all of a sudden, I mean, for the first time in a long time, there was a sense of being glad to be alive. And
Aliveness, right? It's
it
alive.
was, everything was alive. I would
Yeah.
pick up, going hiking with my daughters, we would like pick up a stone or something, and we would, bring it home because it was really beautiful. But I would be in the house and I just hold one of these stones and I could feel the life in something
Mm.
that was like, it was becoming more and more specifically not a separate object. It was becoming like everything had a sense of life to it. And I was going to Trader Joe's every day,
Yeah.
walking through the aisles and just like putting my arms out like this to get hugs. All I wanted to do is just hug people. And some people are like, no, thanks. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I'll just hug you from over here. And the the sense of agency, the closer it seemed to not have any reflection in what thoughts seemed to be, was it just was really clear I wasn't doing anything. I was just simply, it felt like being guided by something divine. I don't even know how to put it, but things were happening, but there was no thought beforehand, and there was no thought and reflection. And so there was no way to even be able to have a sense of, oh, I'm doing anything at all. It just felt like it was happening on its own, truly. And this is continuous.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a lot more intense. A lot of people will express while driving, they have a sense of something's driving, yet I'm not doing it. And they're still somehow, navigating the vehicle, which is so
Yeah.
interesting. But it seems like maybe the sense of agency comes from the reflection after the
Yeah.
fact, in the midst of the moment. The sense of agency comes from, oh, I did that. So I
Yeah.
came up, maybe this metaphor might have some use. It's
Okay.
just a random metaphor that showed up. If there was a little, they said there was a big white feather on a tree branch out here, and the wind blew and kind of carried that feather to a tree branch on another tree. If we were to give that feather the ability to have reflective thought, after it gets carried to the branch of that other tree, it might think, look what I just did, in reflection. It seems to be a form of confirmation bias. Oh, I am the actor with all things. Therefore, I did this.
That's
I don't
beautifully put. I like that. I like that. It's hard to talk about it because there is just an idea of what it is. And but it's still I spent a weekend talking about no free will because I had a couple of conversations with some neuroscientists. They're still
know.
trying to catch up with the idea. Yeah, yeah. It was fascinating. It was really, really fascinating because there is a scientist that have it's still determinism, which is still great. You know what I'm saying? But
Mm-hmm.
scientifically they can't even prove that there's a free will. And the just the impact on that on an apparent seeker is it's a game changer, right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
there's no shame and guilt about anything. It's
Mm-hmm.
freedom. What seems to appear seems to be autonomously happening, and then there's a thought that seemingly kind of like arises that I did this, or I should have done this or whatever, which is
Yeah.
also just this autonomousness of whatever seems to appear. And yeah, and I've been getting a lot of really great feedback from people that attended, especially the newbies that have never really heard of non-duality,
Mm-hmm.
because seemingly a lot of people get into seeking is because they want to get rid of a guilt of some
Yes.
suffering, and it's
Yep.
usually a past situation that seems to have occurred that they think that they have something to do with, or if they can only change something about themselves. So even the idea of karma falls apart, with
Mm.
no free will. The idea of just a whole bunch of stuff, or the dissolution of gurus and teachers, it just completely eradicates the guruhood. It's a new how do you call it? I get excited with this one. It's a new thing that there's no need for any gurus anymore,
Mm-hmm.
because it already is. There's nothing that they can correct because it already is. It's just the innocence. It's just so fascinating. It's just many different um angles of innocence seemingly.
I love that. The
Yeah.
word innocence really captures it.
Yeah.
So here's another aspect of innocence that this is just a thought experiment people can play with. Uh, if we were to look at somebody in history that we didn't like something that they did, but if we put ourselves in their shoes, we would have had the same background, the same parents, the same social environment, the same political environment. We would have done exactly what they did because we would be them. Now, take that same thought experiment and apply it to our own lives. Every single thing that has happened, we had no other option. There was really no other option. So to let go of, I wish I would have done this differently or regret or all those things, just to simply apply a sense of empathy and innocence here, that's it. That's really it.
That's it. That's brilliant. Actually, I like that. I like that because there's just really no option, no
That's it.
other option other than this, right? And no matter what you think of it or not think of it, it's still going to be whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just it's unthinkable, so to speak, right? But it is what it is. And and again, this is not a jab or anything like that, but because I was a teacher that used to correct students, I used to
Mm,
correct their awareness. I used to correct everything. I used to, tell them that there's something that you're doing wrong. And
mm,
I think that when I was a teacher, that started falling apart because I was beginning to see the autonomy of it, and
mm,
I was rejecting that because all the teachings fall apart. So it creates this um, contradiction, like a major hole in teachings when a student's being corrected. There's nothing wrong or right about it. It's just innocence. But I see that so clearly, saying that there's nothing that's needed to be corrected, which
yeah.
lead, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, your take on that.
Well, I think it's beautiful to transition from teaching from the mind
Yeah,
to pointing from the heart, if you will. That intuition, the correction never seems to arise ever, because what could possibly be known?
perfect. Yeah, nothing is known, and that's the thing that when a teacher comes from knowing, and again, this is just a play of innocence. I'm not trying to point at anyone at all. When there is a, and that's why I appreciate you and Angelo. It's coming from that place of clarity that there's nothing that's needed. And thank you for introducing me. By the way, I watched a couple of his videos. I'm like, yeah, yep. You know what I'm saying? It. There's no contradictions really because contradiction seems to appear when there is a correction. There's something wrong, and I see a lot of people that have clarity that falls into the trap, that they come from a place of knowing. And from that
Mm,
place of knowing, they sit on a pedestal and they call out people arrogant or ignorant or, whatever, which is also innocence, which is also play, but it positions themselves as a place of knowing. And this is not a place. There's no geography, there's no division whatsoever.
mhm.
And everything is welcome. So what's your take on everything is already as it is?
Uh, there, the idea that we can modify or reject anything is the ultimate punchline of the cosmic joke.
Yeah,
So it is what I mean. It is as it is. It does if there's a sense of change, it has nothing to do with a center of attention or a center of a universe that's contained within a character. That's for sure. Um, it's a lot of it. It seems to be like an overlay, a skew of vision to some degree, and there's still nothing wrong with that. But even innocence itself seems to be a battle against innocence sometimes, where it's like let's squash that innocence down so that there can be a sense of knowing. But when that innocence is gone, so is that sense of play, and it really does seem like this is all very, very playful. Truly,
it is. It is. It's like puppies at play. Sometimes
yeah.
puppies get really, really rough, and you're like, okay, you know what I'm saying? Time to break up this puppy fight, right? It's just really, really vicious sometimes, and there's a lot of noise that seems to appear, and there's a lot of empty barking back and forth, and that's how I see the spiritual community. Sometimes it's just like a whole bunch of puppy plays, and it's cute, it's innocence because the idea that there's something that can be argued it's just a moot point. There's nothing to
That
argue about anything anymore.
arguing is so foreign of a thing,
Yeah,
and sometimes we did talk about this at some point.
yeah,
um sometimes on the YouTube channel, there will be like you can feel like there's an essence of argumentation there.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's so funny. It's like, what? What is there to argue with? As soon as someone says you're wrong and points a finger here, I go, yes, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
nothing to
Yeah.
reject, nothing to resist at all. And it's funny because if it resonates, it's for you. You're right. If it doesn't resonate, it's not for you. You're
Yeah.
also, you know,
And that's okay. So you don't have to resonate. You don't have an option anyway to resonate with this or not. You know what I'm saying?
right,
It's just going to resonate or not. You know what I'm saying?
right. And some people, some people will come back, this is some of my favorite aspects of this is when honesty is just uncontainable, where they
Yes.
come back and they go, there was a lot of resistance that came up, but there was something that's resonating, and that I just find that really beautiful that people are allowing themselves to truly take this on in a very direct and open way in that regard.
Oh, totally. Totally. Um this is a funny question. What's the most what's the funniest thing that seemingly have happened in this apparent, talking about this? I'll share mine after yours, but go ahead.
Oh man, the first thing that comes up is there was a particular session I had with a gentleman that he really did come to he had an agenda to prove everything that was coming out of this mouth incorrect,
Yeah.
prove it wrong. And there was just a really intense, and it was just like, that was easy to still be there with him entirely compassionately and listen, and not even, there was no agenda here to push. And then I got an email in return, maybe a day later. And it was just like, I wanted to come and say, I apologize. The things you mentioned, I decided to experiment and give them a shot. And I'm starting to notice a whole bunch of things, and it's just shocking to me. And there was something so funny about that level of honesty, about how like it was this energy of like, you're wrong, to you might have a point, even
Brilliant.
though there's no person here to care about that. That's another thing, like compliments don't compliments are nice. What I notice about compliments is underneath the content of a compliment is just compassion. And that's easy to share with people, but it doesn't stick in the way that it used to, that I have to hold on or cling on to a compliment in order to prove how valuable I am. That doesn't really show up any longer.
So my story is I have a friend that does not know anything about non-duality. I have actually a good number of good friends that I'm really open to now, and I don't really kind of like share what I'm sharing, you know what I'm saying? Because it's just for them it's very foreign, so to speak, right? And so I have a friend, this just happened a couple of days ago, and I was traveling and my friend called me and he basically said, I played your video to make fun of you, Emerson. We wanted to make fun of what you're talking about. And then he goes, I played it with a couple of friends, and after a couple of like minutes or something, the whole room went silent. They're like, let's not make fun of him. There's something that he's saying that I can't understand, but it feels good right now. It's and then my friend goes, you're right. And they were talking about this, and now they're interested in non-duality. I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about non-duality to you. can, can we just talk about, old friends in high school and stuff like that and not talk about non-duality?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I mean, that there's no really choice in doing any of this because it seems really crazy to talk about this. How has your family have seemingly reacted to this, or your friends?
Oh man, it's been interesting. The teenagers, the kids,
Mhm.
they actually have a lot of questions. They're really interested,
Yeah.
but on the outside, in the midst of the forming of their identity, which seems to be part of it all, right? There's no interference with that, yet oftentimes there's little breadcrumbs dropped, and they seem really interested, and they seem to take it pretty well.
Yeah.
There's no necessity here for that to be the case. And then with my particular partner, Laura, she the other day She wakes up in the morning and she starts asking a lot of questions. And
Oh
it's
no.
so interesting. And I'm like, huh, I'm looking over her and I say, would you like to just do a little bit of inquiry? And she goes, sure. And so we start going into inquiry. And as we're going, she starts to sob. And
Oh
all of a
wow.
sudden, while she's sobbing,
Yeah.
she breaks into laughter. She moves right back into sobbing. She breaks into laughter. And she's going through this cycle. And she goes, this is so weird. And she's crying and laughing. And
Oh
I go, honey, that's like a pretty big glimpse of this.
yeah.
It's neither one nor the other.
Yeah.
It's just this. And from there, she asked about TRE. I don't know if you're familiar with. It's a somatic exercise.
Yeah.
It's one of my friends, Christina in Montreal. She does it. It stands for traumatic stress relief.
OTRE. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So she asked about TRE, and I gotta say, from firsthand experience, watching her go through these exercises and have these experience of feeling like she's floating, there's something to it for her. And that's the thing, is if it speaks to you, it speaks to you. Um, so it doesn't ever feel like I need to tell people what's going on. I mean, when I'm speaking with neighbors or friends, we continue in the meet them exactly where they are. This only gets spoken about when questions are asked. That's it.
This reminds me of a Star Trek episode when
Yeah.
the whole, Star Trek crew goes to a planet and they cannot interfere with what's happening. So
Mm.
the planet can have, like a technology that is outdated, but they can't say, hey, there's this, warp drives and everything. And you can, because it tampers with what is seemingly, although it's what is, but that's how I see it. Right. There's
That's
nothing,
perfect.
it's already what it is, right? I don't have to say it. But you know what? I talk a lot about this, but I do talk to my nephews and nieces, not purposely about this, but they stumble upon it. There's a lot
Yes.
of curiousness, in
Yeah.
younger people, right? And they're really just really curious about it. And it seems like that they are, it's easier because there's not a lot of barriers or
Mm.
belief systems that are set in
Yeah.
place and everything. And I joke around this, but I think my nephew is probably the clearest of all, because it's just he's 7 years old and he's just wow. He one
Good
day he
for
was
you.
just he was just listening to me during COVID, right? I was doing a lot of one-on-ones and
Mhm.
my brother did not have a choice but to drop him, to my place, so that because of COVID, right? They could not get any babysitters or whatever, so he was just stuck in his iPad, and then he would come back and he would say some really brilliant things. I'm like, oh, okay. Or he will say something like, I guess tantrum just happened.
That is, man, how blessed are they to have you
Yeah.
just speak to them in such an open and honest way? I think that's so beautiful. One thing, her name's Alma. I don't know if you are familiar with her, but
No.
she's really young. She's awesome when it comes to pointing and things like that too. She grew up in I think it was Argentinian culture. And in
Mm,
Argentina, they often have this cultural value of introspection, looking within from
mm.
childhood.
Oh,
And it
wow.
kind of shows why like things really kind of came clear for her
Yeah.
because she's still in her 20s. That there's a benefit to that. So just your conversations, just your openness with these, your niece and nephew, there's something to that.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And it's just play, right? It's funny, right? When we have gatherings now at my brother's house or something, I just naturally kind of like gravitate and I play games with them and everything, and it's just become the cool uncle, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
uh and just it's just amazing. It's just really really amazing of just seeing that everything is already what it is. And I think when you're a kid, when you're not being corrected all the time, and it's just seeing the playfulness of what is, there's just this whatever it is, you know what I'm saying, that there's just this goldenness about it. I like the goldenness. I like that when you said the goldenness, because I put a lot of gold in my website because that's what it is for me, for this character.
Mm.
But also in even the darkest seeming appearance, it could, because I've had many many glimpses. I've had, I think we talked about it the last time, that all throughout, in my 20s, I've had this tragic happenings, and at the end of that, or in not even at the end of it, in between that, or through it, there's this goldenness about it. It's like when you're almost like giving up, and there's just this whatever it is that
Mm,
is this. You know what I'm saying? That cannot be separated from this. And I'm using the word goldenness. It could be just nothing. It could be
mm,
whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's just
mm,
whatever it is, and that's what never leaves.
mm.
That's what
Well,
can never leave. Yeah,
where can it go? Right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Sorry, go ahead. Go
beautiful.
ahead.
Well,
Yeah.
it's just there is something that has come up a lot in one-on-ones,
Hmm.
and it's when there's a sense of finality, a sense of knowledge, or a sense of reaching a place where there's no more to explore. There's like this opening that seems to happen, and then an immediate "this is it." And when they say "this is it," like a
Yeah.
finality, a mourning begins to happen instantaneously.
Yeah.
And then the morning seems to take over that experience. What if it was this is it, but we don't know what it is?
Yes. It's a loss, really, right? But what was really lost at the same time?
Nothing, right?
Yeah. But it's a taking away, but it's not an attainment. So that's the
Hmm.
seeming kind of like a um the conundrum of a lot of seekers, is because they're looking to attain, looking to attain, but it's almost going the opposite direction of something that already is.
Mm-hmm.
And then, by being what is already, then it's just basically a taking away of what was thought about it. And that's what's so evident sometimes when you see people on a one-on-one, and they're like, it's almost like it's like a dumbfoundedness, right? They're like, oh, and there's a loss. It's a grieving of something that they thought that was. It's a mourning, right? It's a mourning of this whole, shimmering idea of enlightenment. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
Ramana and Buddha are not going to come down and sign your papers and present you with a plaque.
I have my card too that I get to.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get my a discount at the frozen yogurt shop.
At the froyo, at the zero froyo with the zero sugar, right? And no one can validate you or invalidate you. And that was what it was too, right? Because it's
Yeah,
just, and it's just what is, right? So it's not um it's not a blessing of someone, or it's not a guru blessing or something. And I think
yeah.
that's what has come more and more evident, because I have people that have done one-on-ones with after a year, and they're like, I'm so glad that you did not kind of like, that I did not continue to be your teacher or guru or speaker and everything. I just left everything. And usually the people that have basically left, and when it is it, it's it. And no matter what it is, it's it. And there's no more teachings that can be said about that anymore, right? So they call back and they say that it's been a wild, a year and everything. And but it's freedom.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not according to someone's freedom, but it's freedom. It's
it's
impersonal freedom. Yeah.
there's this constant connotation that seems to be taking place that I need to change something or I have to do something about this.
Yeah.
And teaching can kind of have that flavor sometimes too, where it's
Yeah.
like I'm
And I'm not
correcting
I'm not,
you
I'm
or
not
I'm
against
reverting.
teaching, by the way.
No, no,
So,
no, no,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
It's just that teaching, if it has a sense of rejecting anything,
Yeah.
then there might be something to look at there. That's all. Because really, it's not about course correction at all. It's
No.
just reminding people that hey, you already have it. It's already here.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do about it.
It's already done. It's already
That's
done.
it.
And that's the only thing that can be illuminated when I speak anyway. Right? It's
Hmm.
it's already finished. It's already whatever it
That's it.
is. And the course correction that seems to appear is a distortion of it.
Hmm.
Which is also what is, you know what I'm saying? And
It is what is.
um
It is what is. And sometimes in the realm of identity,
yeah.
it seems like there might be some use to that, but it can definitely be a fixation.
Yeah, yeah. What's your take on characters that seem to have clarity, and then they flip their message and then try to teach what already is, or find
Hmm.
wrongs? And I've seen that a lot, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's also just innocence. And I don't want to point anyone out. I'm not pointing out anyone, you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
I get a lot of
Hmm.
people that will say that, even in this conversation, what they'll say that what will happen if Josh changes his message or something. What's your take on
Well,
that?
Well, there's one side that's like there's really no consistent message. You've
Yeah,
brought this too, and I love the approach
yeah,
that you'll shift language and terminology
yeah,
intentionally, so that people don't get fixated on the end of the
yeah,
finger moon,
yeah,
right? There's a value to that.
yeah.
I think most importantly is to pay attention to that resonant aspect of intuition. We just know what we know, what we know. And so if there's a teacher or someone pointing and you're just getting a sense that something's not quite right, trust it.
Yeah, yeah. I've been getting a lot of inquiry, people that have been messaging me about certain people, and I don't really want to respond to that, so because that's just what is, because I don't want to put any input. It is what it is, right? So if there's the resonance is not there anymore, then it's not there. If the question
That's
seems
it.
to arise, then
That's
question
it.
seems to arise, and that's it. Kind of like I like the way that you put it. If there's something off about it, then it's off.
You just know.
You just
And
know, yeah, yeah,
and that's a great response. If it's
yeah,
not resonating anymore, then it's
yeah,
not resonating anymore. Nothing to do,
totally.
nothing to fix.
No, that's also what is. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't mean that someone has arrives at something, and that's why I like to meet people where they're at because no one's arrived here,
Mm,
and
yeah.
that's what's evident that there's no arriving at this. It's
Yeah. I mean,
already. It's
where were you
yeah.
going to land? You
Well, the
know,
card that has the benefits. You know what I'm saying, of arriving at something gives you a lot of discount at like Walmart, but
there you go.
but yeah, it's a beautiful appearance, but no one has it, and that's what's so clear in the story. So someone could argue that, but beyond the story, just this without thoughts and everything is already as it is. What are
Mm.
your thoughts about thoughts?
Oh, yeah. Thoughts are interesting.
It is,
Thoughts are
huh?
thoughts are so interesting because sometimes it's like, hmm, sometimes it's like a little LED beacon somewhere, just
Yeah,
beep beep beep. Other times it's like having background music somewhere. Um, it seems it seems like thoughts are just in something else that's energetic that has somehow have it's having a different interpretation. Almost as if the body were like an antenna. Sensations maybe are the way the body interprets or experiences the energetic aspects of this universe, and maybe thoughts are the way that the mind or the brain interprets or perceives the energetic aspects. The only thing that seems really clear, though, when it comes to most human beings, is that thoughts have a reflective value. To live in thoughts really is like living in a hall of mirrors. And so there's nothing wrong with thoughts, that's for sure.
yeah,
But it's almost as if it's like this emptiness becoming form, returning
yeah,
to emptiness, just like everything else.
yeah. The way that I see it is it's just emptiness basically. So it could appear as anything. It could
Mm-hmm.
appear as meaningful, meaningless, but it's still irrelevant. And that's the thing that seems to appear. It's just that even irrelevance is irrelevance, right? So there's really no two with thoughts, meaning
Yeah.
it's not about getting rid of it because there was this whole discussions about about it's about getting rid of thoughts. I'm like, why?
See, that's another thing is it wants us the whole aspect of this is resisting what is. And
Yeah,
so if a thought is what is and we resist that,
yeah.
we're right back into the same game.
It is, yeah. And that's what's fascinating, right? Because I've just been saying, like because it's what seems to appear with a lot of, characters that listens to non-duality is they try to hold on to ideas as nuggets and everything, and they'll say something that maybe Tony Parsons or Angelo would say, and then it
Mm-hmm.
becomes their belief system. And when the
Mm-hmm.
belief system seems to solidify, it actually becomes their very obstacle. So what was clearly said, as a thought, you know what I'm saying, that there's nothing or whatever, or it's just a thought or something, becomes a solidity of
Mm-hmm.
something that someone has to somehow figure out
Right.
or attain. How can
Yeah.
someone become nothing when it's
Like
already?
like a
Yeah,
puzzle. Like
like a
I gotta
puzzle. Yeah,
put the pieces together. Hmm.
and
Yeah.
that's what seekers seemingly do. And again, there's no seekers even. You know what I'm saying? It's just what seems to happen.
And, I mean, seeking can have the momentum or the inertia of seeking does tend to relax after a while. One of my favorite conversations to have with people, and this
Yeah.
is something that you brought up, is I don't want to watch a video. I don't want to read anything anymore.
Yeah.
And I go, congratulations,
Yeah.
because now you don't have to. It's
Yeah.
just this. Like there's nothing else. And
Yeah.
you've gotten tired of it. Good. Now there's just this. Let this teach you. Life is the best teacher.
Totally. When someone messages me that they say that they're done, they're finished, they're sick of it, I'm like, yes, let's have a conversation finally, right? It's almost like when there is a pretend, a play and everything, and somebody wants to say the safe word and they basically want out. And it's then it's just meaning what is. So there's no more barriers and everything, and
Mm,
it's just word seems to be flowing. It's like the flow of whatever seems to be that's already is, and the words are just static, in
mm-hmm,
something that's really really silent. And
mm.
and then no matter how much they try to reject the silence with many many words, the silence always takes over.
I had this I love the way that you put that. There was a dream just a few nights ago. I was in the cityscape that was unfamiliar and somehow was spending time one on one with Adya Shanti
Yeah.
and just being in his presence. And I look over at him and I say, what is the one thing that you would say to anyone that is having a hard time along the path? And he just looked at me and he went like this.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. And I think, what, if a lot of my one-on-ones usually end up with that. It's just like, what are we going to talk about? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's an hour of just sitting and
Yeah.
being together. Um,
Yeah.
sometimes it's laughter for an hour.
Yeah. I have convulsions. I can't post those, saying, but the convulsions, and all of a sudden they're like, what was I convulsing for? I'm like, I have no idea. And then we laugh. Excuse me. And
There's
then we
no
laugh
reason.
about it. We laugh about it because it's almost like that everything is really pointless, but in the story there is a point to this. And
Yeah,
it's just brilliant. The way that it plays is just so brilliant that although nothing is happening, everything is seemingly appearing to support the opposite of that everything is happening. And
it's
it's
such
just,
a
wow,
juicy paradox, right? It's so juicy
it is.
because it's nothing and everything and nothing and everything, and we can never land anywhere within it.
No,
And I mean, it is so brilliant to be in the midst of that as close as we can be because there is no more effort. There's no more requirement. There's no more responsibility. There's no more have to. It just shows up on its own and it works perfectly. Like this is what perfection is. And we don't have to do a damn thing about it.
and and even if you think you have to do something about it, that's the same thing. You
Same
know what I'm
thing.
saying?
That's
It's
it.
it's and it's just this wondrous appearance. It's like this cacophony of everything, you know what I'm saying? And it's also ephemeral. It's also a blink and it's nothing. And it's just like what? Right? It could be this, everything could be dumped, everything could be dumped. And then the moment that you sigh, oh, what was that? It's just brilliant, right? Because it's this solidity and it's the emptiness and everything, and it's just the wildness, the brutality of it. Yet
Mm,
it cannot really, it's brutal sometimes, right? It can
yeah.
be, it
Yeah.
can be, I haven't been paying attention to the war, and I don't really pay attention to the news and everything. Not as because I'm better or whatever. Just it just doesn't happen. I saw this kid. I don't know what it was. There was this kid that was in shock, and I just went into tears. Um,
Mm,
and
mm,
there's no sides. You know what I'm saying? It's just the suffering. It's not a denial of anything. It's the full on expression of something. So sadness can be full on, and but it's also empty, and it's just so brilliant the way that it appears, right? That everything already is, and everything has already happened because it never
mm,
happened, and everything
mm.
is already clearly this,
Here and gone.
here
Gone.
and gone. Yeah.
You
Um.
know, There's this
So
really funny comic that it shows like these two little monsters sitting on what looks like a bus, and one's dark and he's got a frown, and there's a bubble that says life has no meaning, and he's like upset. And then the other one's a red little monster with a big
yeah.
smile on his face with his arms up, and his bubble says life has no meaning.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. And it doesn't matter what the reaction is because the reaction is also it. It's
That's true.
not separate from what's happening. And it's
It's just
just
a matter of, do you have to? Because I think sometimes there's this overlay of have to.
yeah. Yeah. That 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 second guessing is gone, you know what I'm saying? And that
Yeah.
wanting to change things is gone.
Yeah.
And that's what's lost, right? So people are afraid to lose themselves, but there's no you in the first place to be lost. But that false idea of what you are, which
Mm,
creates this diversion, you know what I'm saying, to it's almost like this always kind of like rejecting what is, but coming up with a whole bunch of like, what if.
that's the paradox. That's one of the most difficult aspects of this particular paradox to speak of is it's an illusion, but even the illusion is still this. That is really
Yeah,
hard to speak of. Yet that's kind of it. Like
yeah,
the idea of a self and the idea of these beliefs that help support this construct of a self, that is, it's an illusion, but it
yeah,
also is part of this.
yeah. What's your take on the self now?
Man, can't be found.
Yeah.
Um,
It's just that simple, right? It can't be found.
it can't, and I had this wonderful text conversation where a particular woman in Europe, she sent me a voice message, and she was like, "I cannot find anything solid. There's doesn't seem to
Yeah,
be anything there." And I said, "Is that so bad?"
exactly. Yeah,
And she seems okay with it.
exactly. Yeah. And that's what's so obvious is there's no self to be found. And not just seemingly for character to seemingly see the loss of sense of me or whatever, but for
Mm,
everyone doesn't can't really it can't be found.
mm.
And that's what's so obvious already. It does not need anything because there's no self to be found. But the ideas of the self can be found, you know what I'm saying? But that's also just an elaborate facade. It's
Yeah,
an illusion. It's
it's
brilliant.
it's a brilliant illusion. It is
It
brilliant.
is.
And it's like this. It's what it seems to be is like an idea ahead of time somehow,
Yeah.
and looking for pieces to fit in that idea. But then the question we can ask is just get a little closer. Are there even pieces? Is
Brilliant.
it is
Yeah.
this, is this really broken into parts?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
is that something else that's being imposed?
It's so it's just so simple because you know what, and we can have another conversation about spiritual seeking and what I did, which will probably be 2 hours to 3 hours of talk about what I
I'd love to.
did.
I would love to. It's so easy to chat with you. I love the shit out of you.
Oh,
You're
I love
amazing.
you too, man. This is just such a great chat. It just flows, right?
Mm,
There's really no better than this because people are trying to figure out what's the truth, what's better, and everything. None.
that's it. This is a sharing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And maybe that's the value. I'm going to pretend that even exists, but
yeah,
maybe that's the value of even watching these kinds of things for people. Sometimes we're not getting really into do these things, do these things, do
yeah,
these things, but we are sharing, and you obviously can share this because you do share this.
yeah.
Every
Totally,
being out there. And if there's
totally.
something about the joy that you're experiencing while watching this, okay, there it
Y-
is.
Yeah, totally. So before we go, Josh, can you tell them how people can reach you? I'll also put it on the thing there, but and what events do you have coming up? I think you have some event with
Oh,
an exciting event with Angelo. You guys did a talk about it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Well, we have basically a four facilitator satsang coming up on November 11th. We call it Ouroboros. just because it's, the
I like
serpent.
that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's this whole Carl Jung quote. The way he puts it is so great. It's the snake is simultaneously eating itself and fertilizing it and giving birth to itself. It gets really close to, the paradox of what this is. But
Yeah.
it looks like it'll be a pretty fun time. It'll be Alma, Eshwar, Angelo, and myself. And yeah, come and ask some questions and get a whole bunch of different pointings.
When is that coming up? Is it November
That's on the 11th of
11th?
November.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
And that's at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. So wherever you are in the
Oh,
world,
cool.
that'll work.
That's cool. And then you can reach at your website. You do one-on-ones as well at soawake.com.
Mhm. That's it. Yeah. And yeah.
Well, I love you, man. This has been a great conversation. Saying it's always the same with talking to you about this. And I love that there's really no this or that. It's just this.
Yeah.
It's not because Angelo's camp and radical non-duality camp. It's just this.
There's really no position to be taken. It's just this, like you say, and same thing with you. So much appreciate just the authenticity, just the allowance, who you are, what it is, what's natural, the thisness that just emanates from you. It really is such a beautiful thing. So grateful for you.
Hooray! I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna pause this now. Thank you so much, and